Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey everybody, welcome into episode 79. And this is kind of a different and special type of episode because number one, we're going to talk about a subject that's super timely right now and is, I think, fascinating in all respects. And that is what businesses and industries are doing well through COVID and how we as web designers have a big opportunity to help those businesses and to help our clients through it. But I'm talking with somebody who is knee deep in this subject because he works with a lot of different industries and a lot of different businesses. And on top of that, this is actually a close friend of mine. This is Patrick Dichter, and he is a business coach and consultant. Long story short, he is actually the reason I discovered Divi. A mutual friend of ours years ago, this was back in 2014, had us connect, and she was like, listen, you should talk to my colleague Patrick. He's a great guy. He's working for this digital marketing agency. And at the time, I told our mutual friend that I was looking to work with more agencies to expand my network and potentially do some more subcontracting. So I met with Patrick. We had a great cup of coffee together, and I just really liked him as a person. And he invited me into the agency he was working with, and to get to know them. And then I became a subcontractor for this company, and they used Divi. It was my first exposure to Divi, and then I came around to it, and that's what really set my whole career trajectory. Goodness gracious, in motion. Was working with Patrick's company. So. Long story short to say, Patrick is a good friend of mine and is kind of a reason I was involved with Divi. But I've kept tabs with him and we've kept in touch, and we recently just had a catch-up call. We hadn't talked in a while, and then we had a catch-up call, and we were talking about what he's experienced with different businesses through this year in 2020 with COVID. And I asked him kind of what he's seen that's worked well, what industries were doing well, what industries were not doing well, how to pivot, what he's seen clients do successfully with pivoting in COVID, in a kind of a COVID business landscape. And I thought it was so fascinating that I was like, dude, let's talk about this again, but make it a podcast. So he agreed to that and came on, and here's the episode. So I'm really excited to have you hear from Patrick on his perspective with a bunch of different businesses, with what's working well, what's not working well, and more importantly, how you can help your clients through COVID. Now, I will say, if you haven't already, you have got to get a WordPress and website maintenance plan going. This is one of the best ways to build recurring income and stable income, particularly through a pandemic. I only had one client drop off my maintenance plan when COVID hit, and he was kind of a pain in the ass anyway, so it didn't hurt me too bad. But only one client canceled their monthly maintenance plan with us during COVID. And that really helped us in my web design business through that time where there's a lot of uncertainty. And inevitably, clients are a little slower to move forward on stuff and pay on time or pay their full sums if there's a bunch of uncertainty. But one thing that's always going to be certain is keeping their websites up. And no one is going to cancel their website hosting or maintenance when it's crucial that their website is performing as online. So having a maintenance plan is a great way to have stable income through uncertain times like we found this year with COVID. And if you haven't already started your plan or you're ready to take yours to the next level, I have a course on how to build a successful website maintenance plan that's available right now, and it's open for you to join if you are ready to start or take your plan to the next level. So join that today, and I would love to help you build or grow your plan. All right, without further ado, enjoy my interview with my good buddy and my friend Patrick, and let's talk about what's working, what's not, and how you can help your clients through COVID. Patrick, welcome to the show, man. It is great to have you on, my friend.
Gosh, it's great to be here.
So we've been friends for several years now, actually a long time. I think maybe dating back to 2014 or so, and you were a big reason I actually found Divi. And I've seen you progress in your career from working in a digital marketing agency, and you're doing a lot of work with businesses one-on-one with consulting now. I'm really excited about this topic because we're going to hear from you about what you've seen as somebody who works with a lot of different businesses and a lot of different industries. And I think it's going to be really valuable for my audience of web designers to see like which industries are good fits for us to really pursue and to have an eye on to work with. So before we dive into that, man, I'd love to have you let everybody know where you are and what you do exactly.
Sure. It's great to be here. Nowadays, I live in Denver, Colorado. So grew up in Colorado, did my undergrad and MBA at Denver, and then I was working for a digital agency that was a startup in Columbus, Ohio, where we met. So I spent better half of 4.5 years there and helped grow that company. We went from a few employees when I was there up to about 300 when I left. It's still growing, but nowadays I work with Cultivate Advisors. So we do small business consulting and coaching. So we help people work smarter on their business and grow it faster. So we work with a lot of web design companies, marketing agencies, construction, lawyers, accountants, and just help them get out of their craft a little bit and work on the business so that they can, get better at sales, get better at leading and managing people, fine tune their operations and their financials. So that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. Well said. Great little elevator pitch, man. So let's just dive into it. Let's go back to like February or March this year, 2020, right at the beginning of COVID. Let's start there. What did you see with all your clients in the different industries you work with? Did you see I guess that's the question. Just what did it look like initially from your perspective with all the changes with COVID and the pandemic?
It's kind of wild looking back now. We had a big company meeting where half of us went to Vancouver, half went to Chicago. And then 2 days after we got back was when like the travel ban happened and the NBA stopped. And it was kind of wild. So we saw big changes based on the industry. And then also we saw big changes based on kind of the risk tolerance of the owner. So by industry, we were fairly diversified, but we saw tourism kind of come to a grinding halt, and then for the next 45, 60 days, everyone was trying to figure out what to do. Like, these service firms are like, I think I still have these clients and I think they're okay. But, then everyone was trying to figure out the PPP program. So I would say coming out of that 45 days later, obviously tourism came to a grinding halt and they're going to be hurting for a while. But we saw construction carry on, be busy as ever, just with so many people moving and still wanting to buy houses, or you saw a lot of people getting out of big cities. We see B2B services continuing right along, like marketing, legal, software, they're carrying on. And on the B2C side, we saw people pivoting and figuring out how to, continue to operate their restaurant or continue to operate their floral service or, their medical practice or whatever it is. So industry-wide, if you're tourism related, it just hurt. All the others, they kind of figured out some way to carry on. And then we also just I saw a different dynamic of my clients. So I think everyone was in like a deer in headlights for a period of time, but some people were there for 3 weeks and some people were there for like 3 months, right? Of just like, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And the people
I guess depending on the industry too, if you are the owner of a tourist company or a tour, kind of company, then yeah, that would be a several month ordeal. It's still going on.
But I even saw it with like some marketing agencies that I'd worked with where some of them were like, okay, like we're going to go play offense and still figure out how to get new clients. And then there were others that were still just kind of like paralyzed. And the guys who are, playing offense and like trying to put their head down and lead and control what they can, they're growing again, which is kind of wild. So now, here we are, it's late October as we record this. I think everyone's kind of like, figuring out how to carry on. I think the election is a variable for a lot of people of like seeing what will happen there. And then I would say in general, I think people are a little bit slower to make purchasing decisions. So if they're trying to decide on a new website or decide on some other transaction, they might not pull the trigger as easily as they did before, but it's still happening. So.
Yeah, well, and you said something that's key right there, which was essentially being proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
And that's a little message I put out in March. It was to, like, for web designers, don't just sit back and wait and see what happens. Help your clients through this. Mm-hmm. So Eric, who is my CEO now, before I brought him in as a CEO of InTransit, one thing I saw him do in a Facebook group that we're a part of is I saw him do just that. He was like, hey guys, I just want to let everyone know what we're doing. We offered to put like banners on the top of our websites with notices or disclaimers if the hours are changed or the business is shut down for a little while, or stuff like that. And he was really trying to help his clients through that time. And that was a big key for me, that I was like, this is the kind of guy I want to work with my clients, and it really kind of, it reinforced what I was doing with my clients, because I did the same thing. I sent something out and let everybody know, hey, with all the changes, just let us know if you need to have like a maintenance page on your website that says, check back soon, or we're adjusting our hours or adjusting our information. So that idea of being proactive versus reactive was huge right in that time. And I think for anyone listening, no matter what industry it is, that is crucial in the time of uncertainty, right? Like just keep pushing forward, because no matter what happens, there's going to be no harm in pushing forward. The worst thing you can do is just sit idle and wait.
Yeah. 100% agreed. And I think it's, whether it's COVID or something else, just looking through the lens of like, I want to make my clients think of me as like a long-term partner, not just a vendor, because whether it's COVID or something else and they make budget decisions, or if there's like a competitor in their ear, if they think like, Josh is my guy, and like I just know that he always cares and he's going an extra mile, like they're going to treat you as a partner versus a vendor that they like switch out.
That's a great point. Partner over vendor. Yeah, that's a really good analogy, particularly as a web designer, because we are just that. We are partners. We are somebody who, it's an ongoing relationship. It's not just something they purchase and it's a one and done. It's very much a partnership. You mentioned something about like risk tolerance and the personality of some of your clients. I think that would be really interesting to dive into, because that would give us kind of a good overview of like what kind of companies are well versed to risk and which ones are maybe quick to stop services, like stop marketing, stop, certain areas of spending that they have. What did you see? And maybe we could tackle this by certain industries or maybe as a whole. But you said there was a big difference between like the first 30 to 45 days to the ones that were, still in panic mode several months later. What did that look like from like that risk tolerance perspective? Like, did you see certain industries that weren't as affected or weren't as worried versus, or was it just personality type?
It was totally personality. And without naming names, I'll just give you two stories. So I worked with an engineering company on the East Coast, and they have a like AV service related to commercial construction. And they had this huge pipeline. They have a ton of cash. And I was like, you should market. Commercial construction is carrying on, and he pulled the reins in. Like he let a couple people furlough, and he pulled in his marketing, right?
Like right away, like when it happened? Or?
Yeah. And then a guy on the West Coast, he does software development. So he's like, building custom apps and custom software. And, he's working with startups, and he's like, I don't know if VC money is going to like dry up a portion of our customers if that slows down, or like if other people are going to stop investing in tech. But I was like, well, you've got the cash shaved up. Like, we're in a good spot. Like, let's put the gas pedal down, because other people are probably pulling back their advertising. So he ramped up his marketing. We hired a salesperson. He increased his advertising on Clutch, and they're crushing it, So, and it was just their mindset of like, one guy was like, I'm going to wait and see. And then the other guy was like, well, I could take these smaller calculated risks now, because he felt comfortable with the position his business was in.
The one on the East Coast, did he snap out of that, or what did that look like?
He did. It probably took him 5 months, but he was like, back to marketing and felt like his clients were stable. I will say both people are paying slower in general. So on the AR side, I think that was part of what scared him, is he had like, people are normally paying him like net 45 or net 60, and then he was seeing it go longer.
Gotcha.
So that might be one variable that improved, that helped him feel better. So
yeah, I know we did that too during that time period, which was, if typically we do 50% upfront and 50% upon completion for website projects, but in that case we were a little more lenient, and I would tell clients like, if we want to do a project and you want to just do a down payment of 30%, and then we can stagger the rest, that's always an option too. So it was just the idea of being proactive
Mhm.
versus reactive for sure all around. And it was interesting for me as a course creator because the opposite happened with my personal brand at joshhall.co because I saw such a big influx of
Mhm.
people who were being furloughed who had web design side gigs, or maybe they had dabbled around websites years ago and then they just got laid off and they're like, well, now is a good time to get into web. And I saw a big influx of people, and it made me think at that time, not only did I want to help those people learn web design as quickly as possible, but it made me realize there is a big need for companies who are taking their stuff online. So I'd love to talk about that. Like you mentioned some businesses pivoting to
Yeah.
how they could continue to do their businesses online in particular. What were some industries that you saw that did well at that? And I know nobody made the big changes right away. It seemed like it took a couple months for businesses to realize, okay, this pandemic isn't just going to be 2 months. We need to have like a more long-term solution online, whether it's
Right.
e-commerce or whether it's like a community. Yeah, what were some industries that you saw that pivoted online?
It was kind of interesting. I think it'll be helpful for a lot of businesses, but in residential construction, like we saw a solar company that was normally like all in-person quoting. They said, we could hop on a Zoom link, we can get a Google Earth view of your roof, and we can
Mm,
quote solar right over Zoom with you. So we saw that in residential, even like cabinetry folks, where they said like you can do the basic measurements, we'll give you a quote that's probably 90% accurate, and then if you're comfortable with us going to install, we'll just double check your measurements. So just making some of those services where it's kind of an in-person quote, they were able to digitize that a lot. Our company had actually worked with a lot of food tourism clients, and we even saw some of them create like virtual tour products where, if people were normally visiting Portugal or visiting Savannah, they would create this virtual tour and then they would go sell it to schools. So it was like
mhm.
something even get them through this time. Um, and then on the professional services side, I think some people that maybe felt bound by geography before, where you're like, okay, I'm the accountant or I'm the attorney in this city. Suddenly, as more people become comfortable with Zoom, they're saying like, okay, I can use this person that's not in my backyard and upload
Yeah.
documents securely and just do things virtually. So
It's an interesting point because as web designers, not much changed for us on a
yeah,
day-to-day basis. Like we're used to jumping on Zoom and working remotely and working with anyone anywhere. But for a lot of clients, it was culture shock, and for a lot of different industries, just the idea of like hopping on Zoom for a meeting was very foreign to a lot of people. I
yeah,
know my networking group, the amount of people that had like a lot of struggle figuring out Zoom initially was pretty funny. And then of course there was a whole aspect of like their lighting and the terrible sound there. I know like everyone adjusted, whereas web designers, that was another area for us to capitalize on by like helping clients with that kind of stuff.
yeah,
I told a lot of students and a lot of people I've networked with online is even if you like offer some sort of just basic tips and tutorials on helping with that kind of stuff, it really goes a long way.
mhm,
Um, there were so many areas I felt like I almost honestly feel like thinking back, the beginning of the pandemic was like the web designer's time to shine because, and the good news is it's not over. Like, well, not that it's good news that the pandemic isn't over. I'm just saying it's good news that you can still take this opportunity to shine as a web designer. It's a great time to get into web design. There's so many industries that are dying and literally need a trusted guy or gal to be their web person.
mhm,
And there's all these things that you can do in and around web design itself, including like different forms of digital marketing, social media, SEO, more important than ever now, because like you just said, a lot of companies are finding out you don't have to be bound to your little local area. You can
right,
actually do a lot of good around your city or abroad.
mhm,
Um, so I still feel like the iron is hot for web designers to step in and to make a big impact with our clients and do a lot of good. And it could be as simple as helping, creating some resources on how to use Zoom effectively and stuff like that. Like it really does go a long way. Um, and I was just thinking, like the start of that, because like I said, we really try to be proactive versus reactive. Um, I'd like to ask you for the companies that did start to go digital. I mean, restaurants were a big one they realized we've got to get our online ordering. Did you see any other industries pivot online other than some of the most obvious ones? Like I know, for example, one of our clients is a balloon, like a magic show balloon event kind of guy, and he started doing virtual events. Like he figured out how to he was pretty tech savvy, credit him, but he was able to kind of pivot during that. It did take a while, but he did do it. Did you see any other good examples of companies pivoting online?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of those B2C clients that are, it's just pickup. So restaurants obvious, but you look at florists, they figured out like how to just do pickup or maybe add on delivery. I think even some retail stores have added e-commerce that didn't have it before. I mean, those are the ones that jump to mind right away. And I had a train of thought there that I was going with and losing. Airbnb. If you ever like want to get inspired or like look at how many people are going virtual, just go to Airbnb and look at experiences. I was doing that with some other clients, and there's so many offerings out there, and then you can just look at the number of reviews, and that tells you like at least how many people have purchased that. And I think it's a leading indicator of just how much demand is out there for these things that you would normally just think of as like an in-person transaction that are now going virtual.
Gotcha.
So if you can, fitness is another big one, right? Like virtual training, like doing the online coaching versus in person at a gym. But there's so many, whether it's like a sliding scale of like you're doing a little bit virtually to you went entirely virtual. And I also think of the web designer as like, you can also help your clients train their customers, right? Like my wife's a veterinarian and they go out to the car to get the pet to bring it back inside, right? So like if you can put all those instructions on the website for your client beforehand of like, here's our COVID procedures, here's what the normal process looks like, here's a video that makes people feel comfortable with like that new process. I think for the web designer, it continues to just make you that much more valuable to your client and help them grow so that they can add more services with you later.
Absolutely. It's also a great time to shine as far as thinking about stuff that maybe they didn't think of. So just like that, like have your COVID procedures on the website. A lot of business owners, I'm sure, had so much to deal with in their own mind, they didn't even think about that. So that's another great example. Yeah. And the obvious ones for web designers were e-commerce. That was a big one. A lot of businesses were realizing, I've got to start selling my stuff online. So there's a big one. There's still a huge demand for that. So again, I'm saying this right now as I think this episode's going to be out in November. It's not too late to be the web designer that saves the day. In fact, there's probably not a better time than right now to do this and to capitalize on this. Mm-hmm. So that's a big one. I found that memberships and forum-based things are really, really crucial right now. I'm actually launching my own membership right now. And I knew I was going to do that for a long time, but COVID really made me expedite it because I realized right now people are more lonely and working from home and by themselves than ever. And that's our MO as web designers. We work generally remotely or from home. So it's a lonely kind of journey. So online community is huge, but more so than ever, some type of community online is really important. And not even just for web designers, but other communities as well. Like I know one of our clients is a company safety, like a safety type of company. And we built their membership last year, and they kind of created their own little like curated tribe of clients, and there's a lot of need for that too. So I feel like membership sites and forum-based things are really good for a lot of different industries.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know what you've seen, particularly from like a networking perspective. I know everyone's pretty much going on Zoom, but when it comes to that aspect, did you see anything like that? Like I guess that's a question for you, Patrick. How did networking change with the clients that you knew were involved with the communities and stuff like that?
Yeah, again, it's kind of easier to like pop in and out of the virtual side. I've even seen where it's been part of our marketing plan with some of our B2B clients where strategically we say, okay, like I have a business attorney, for example, and he knows his best referrals could come from a commercial realtor, a banker, CPA, maybe a manufacturing person because of the practice areas he's in. So because he can't do in-person networking, we strategically handed that off to his paralegal to say, like, find these folks on LinkedIn, reach out to a certain number, and we're just going to try to set up 1 to 2 kind of like virtual coffees per week where he can start to meet these new virtual referral partners. So
Okay.
I think that there's ways that you can be proactive about it, and then you still have your your chamber meetings or your BNIs or your networking groups like that, where they're still meeting in person. And I think we all have some Zoom fatigue, but you got to still keep doing it to keep your face in front of people. And on the member side, I want to circle back on one thing. I have a client in Austin, Texas. She does like a specialized type of like body work and massage. And she pivoted to develop an online offering just for people that are working from home, so she's like, if you're in tech or you're in professional services, you're sitting at a desk all day, I'm going to basically like coach you twice a month how to keep your mobility, keep your flexibility so you don't lose it. And then it also helps her, create some recurring revenue, keep some of her clients, and develop a virtual offering that wasn't there before. So
that's great. That's a great idea. What a perfect example of just a slight pivot, doing what you would do in person, or even maybe if you did digitally every once in a while, upping that to do things more consistently. I would love to talk about some more marketing ideas here during this time, because you hit on it right there. Being proactive versus reactive, you could take to a lot of different areas. Being that most networking groups are in person now, again, that's good. I would still encourage, anytime you can get face-to-face is still the best. So I would encourage people still, you can still get out there as long as you follow all the guidelines. I know some places are more strict than others with where you can go and what you can do, but I've still done in-person meetings and stuff like that. We've followed all the measured and all the guidelines. But what are some other ideas or maybe examples that you've seen from clients who have marketed well during this time? Is you just mentioned the kind of the tactful reach outs, like, maybe a set number of times per month you want to make certain connections. Have you seen anything else like that, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or have you seen companies do like email marketing more? Have you seen any good marketing tactics that we could maybe use ourselves or pass along to our clients?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind. I think if I'm a web designer, here's what I might do. A lot of these home service companies that traditionally relied on like a home and garden show, you could get in Columbus, in Denver, whatever city, you could find the list of whoever did the home and garden show last year, and you could probably just like maybe review their websites or see, do any of those folks need a refresh, because a lot of them start in the spring and then that fills their funnel through the summer. So you could see like, hey, can we help you develop some digital offerings? So you could see whatever industry you want to target, look at who did the conferences last year, and then you could reach out via phone or email. I think tapping into your happy clients. So think of like, who are your 2 or 3 happiest clients? And if it's a realtor or a roofer or an auto body place, think of what are the related businesses that they know, right? So the auto body guy is going to know a tire shop and a paint shop and a car rental place, right? Like, who's in their sphere? And you can say like, would I be able to get connected to them, or do you mind just sending us an intro to see if they ever need help? And just make a soft intro that way. I do think getting involved in some of the groups online is a good one, because you'll just see what conversations are happening there, what problems are happening there. LinkedIn can still work well. I know there's a lot more just like bad, cold spam email on LinkedIn, but I think if you personalize it and cater it, it's a numbers game, and people still need your help. I've even seen, some agencies find good leads through sites like Upcity or Clutch or Bark. Just depends on, if you've got the budget to go ahead and advertise there, but there's solid ROI.
You're making me think, like, when it comes to the cold leads and the cold reach outs and stuff like that, it also lends itself to the fact that now is the best time to share what you know. And I've always been a proponent of, instead of like cold calling or just like trying to get these kind of leads, is to just share what you know and the leads will come. I'm not against those cold reach outs and stuff like now, particularly right now, but there is no better time to differentiate yourself from other, particularly web designers, by sharing what you know. Just going back to the idea of like doing like a Zoom tutorial. Like if you guys are doing meetings and you're curious, here's some really cool features. Here's something that can help for your websites. Here's like we've done some stuff within Transit for our clients where Eric has pushed out some ideas on like things you can do during this time period. Whether it's like 5 tips for making sure your website is compliant during COVID, or 5 things you can do to re-engage with your customers during this time. So there's all these kind of tips that I think are important for us just to remember. Like this episode, just talking to you is making me think, and it's like kind of like lighting the bulb in my mind of like, oh, we should do this, we should implement this. So it's a matter of getting creative, but I say now more than ever, web designers, share what you know. Just do, even if you're not super comfortable in front of the camera, you can still do some sort of a screen recording or something like that, because it really goes a long way.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is it's such a visual business that if you said like, here's this new website we did for this cabinetry place, or like here's how they started to develop like a virtual quoting process. Other people who are maybe in the trades and didn't think they needed a new website, when they see that, they'll be like, I want that, Yeah. And it's just like you just accelerate like the sales process that quickly, because it's really compelling visuals. So if you can share content that's relevant and show those visual examples, the people that are finding it are going to see you as a thought leader, and they'll suddenly go, yeah, I think I need that.
And if you can add to that a case study or an example of like some results that you've got for clients, that's even better. Like the one that you talked about, the West Coast gal who was like, or I think it was, is that right? The West Coast gal who was
building software.
The guy who's building software, who they were like proactive versus the one over here who was like waiting. That's a great example. And like, as somebody who would work with you, I would be like, well, I like that Patrick has an eye on these different type of scenarios and he's seen what's working, so you can pull from that. So web designers can do that with your own clients. If you have one client that's killing it and they're doing okay right now, you can take those strategies and pass them on to your other clients, and it makes you look like a hero. So I would just encourage everyone to do that. And I imagine what's interesting about what you're doing, Patrick, is that you're seeing, for one, you're seeing a ton of different industries. Mm-hmm. You're seeing a ton of different personality types, and you're seeing like all these different avenues for success and failure that I imagine you're kind of able to pick what's working, and then what to steer clear from. And I mean, it's got to be pretty cool, right? To be able to help clients, because you're learning from some clients and then passing them on to others, and we can do the same thing.
Yeah, I love it. And it's not just me. There's, like 25 other advisors and consultants in the company. So we're always like sharing best practices, but it's super fun because every client is a puzzle piece, and you can see, what's working, and then share that with others. And you see things really quickly and see the data as well. Yeah.
So we've talked about some good stuff. Oddly enough, I'd like to talk about some of the things that haven't gone well that you've seen as kind of like a warning for us, or maybe red flags that we need to look out for. Have you had any clients go down completely? Have you seen any industries that are just not, like the tourism industry? The airline industry is very questionable right now. Yeah. Anything in person is just much tougher right now. I know even like, did you know Men's Warehouse closed down? Yeah, so like Men's Warehouse, some other places that like no one's wearing suits anymore.
It's like, where are we going to get buy 10 suits, get 12 free,
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a lot. Luckily for me, t-shirts aren't ever going to go out of style, so I'm set. But for the people who do actually get dressed for work, that's different now. Yeah. Like there's some industries that, are going to be harshly affected by this. So I guess, to almost take it down a note, what industry, have you seen any examples like that, or some industries that maybe we should just
I had a client who did B2B event marketing. So he was like a HubSpot agency just for like conferences, and their revenue dropped so significantly. Like they're just like, we don't think it's worth it, and they closed the doors. He did open up a different business afterwards. Last week I talked to a new potential client that's in the event rental space. So he's catering to like people who are putting on weddings and big conferences. He said he's operating about 25% of what he normally does. 2 of his competitors went out of business. Uh, we've had some clients where they're just looking at this year as like just a keep the lights on year, where they're just trying to
Mm.
break even or stay in the black, knowing that like hopefully they can pick up market share next year. Um, yeah, those are the ones that come to mind right now on the you know not going well side, the unfortunate side,
Yeah.
um, which sucks and it like breaks your heart. And especially like when I drive around town and you see the signs of like people that decided to close and they
Oh, it's the
worked
worst, man.
hard.
Yeah, so we first met at Stoff's, a coffee shop in Grandview here in Columbus, and they're still open, but there's a ton of places in Grandview in particular that they're all boarded up and closed now, and it breaks my heart going through there to see that because yeah, there are a lot of these like you'd call it B2C, right? Like a business to customer where customers are coming in to the store, and if they haven't pivoted, if they haven't got their stuff online, going back to why it's so important for web designers to take the lead on this, then yeah, there's I mean the problem I think now too is that we don't know how long this is going to last and we don't know the economic effects of all this. So I feel like you're starting to see some of the worst of it, and there are some industries I just don't know if they'll ever recover. Do you have any pulse on that? Like, do you feel like there's certain industries, we know certain industries are going to be rocked and changed forever, but do you feel like there are some that maybe we should just, yeah, not that we should not work with certain clients in certain industries, but I guess the question is, do you see a shift in some of those industries, like either going digital or maybe just not, doing like event kind of stuff and tourism? I imagine that's going to change dramatically.
Yeah, I guess if I'm a web designer, I might be you know a little careful on working with restaurants or like tourism related companies for the next 6 months until we see how this all shakes out. Um, or just try not to overinvest in a project
I
as
was just gonna say, yeah, we as web
slow down.
designers could, yeah, we could be more empathetic to their situation as well. Like if you can at least cover your costs, but then like for example, keep them on your maintenance plan, do their hosting, but just maybe be lenient with them. I did that for one of my clients, which is a skating rink here, and his doors were closed for good for a couple months. And he actually ended up getting a job at Amazon just to cover his personal bill. So I was like, dude, I'm not going to bill you for the maintenance plan while you're closed. I said, just when you open back up, let me know and we'll reactivate it. But for right now, it's barely any cost on my end to do that. He's been a great client, so we did that for him, and he fired back up when they opened back up, so it was fine. We actually only had one maintenance plan client stop his plan, but he was kind of a pain in the ass kind of client anyway, and he was a jump ship as quickly as he can kind of personality type. So it wasn't a big deal, but it's a good thought and a good advice just for us as web designers and just as entrepreneurs to be very vigilant with like what the landscape looks like,
Yeah.
because there are industries that are doing really well right now. Like you said, the construction stuff has not changed, doesn't seem like. Restaurants are hit very tough, but luckily a lot of them have done really well, I feel like, with the e-commerce side of things. So
Yeah.
any business that needs to get their stuff online, particularly with e-commerce, I know not everyone wants to do e-commerce, but there's really such a demand for it. I would encourage everybody to do it. And then I have a WooCommerce course if everyone is curious. I guide you through how to create online sites with Divi and WooCommerce. So there are these areas, I guess almost going back to the initial question of like businesses that are doing well and that seem to like they're going to do well. My next question for you, Patrick, would be in the future. Like I know it's probably tough to see exactly into the future here, but what industries do you foresee with your experience working with a lot of different people? What type of industries specifically? Because I'm going to ask you about personality types next.
Yeah.
But industry wise, what industries do you think are actually going to do really well over the next handful of months, maybe 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I'm not an economist by any means, but there's even economists. I keep saying construction's doing well. Like sometimes that's a lagging indicator. So they could be the one that's struggling if like people can't finance housing well in 6 or 12 months or like do new construction. All that being said, if I were to bet on industries, I would bet on digital marketing. I'd bet on education. I'd bet on the vices like cannabis, liquor. I'd bet on entertainment.
Mhm.
Those would be the industries that I think about.
That's good.
Go and
That's
do it
good.
well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like some of it's not rocket science. It's just, common sense. But I'm curious because you have worked with a lot of different businesses. If you see, like, and actually, that's a good. I actually was curious. Have you seen any businesses that have done really well through this time?
Yeah, the like some of the specialty foods just crushed, like you know meat purveyors and home produce delivery type businesses. Um, they've gone gangbusters. A lot of my marketing agency clients have done really well. Um, uh, People that are related to real estate, so property management, moving companies, those types of folks. Um,
Really, they've done good through this time.
yeah, for sure. Just because you see a lot of people that are, making moves to like the suburbs or maybe out of bigger cities, or
Mhm.
people buying investment properties and using a property management company to manage that for them. Um, yeah, those are the ones that jump to mind in terms of people that have just crushed it this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So let's focus. We talked briefly about personality types, just because you were kind of smirking when we were talking about the different types of people you work with.
yeah,
Which in business is people. So if you're going to be in
sure.
business, you have to get used to working with different personality types. But um, what have you seen? Like we talked about the examples of one stopping stuff too quick or just being reactive instead of proactive, but have you seen any personality traits of people who have got through this and seem to be doing really well? Have you seen anything like any common personality traits that you would like to take yourself or recommend to my audience as far as like, yeah, I guess it's kind of a tough question, but yeah,
Well,
personality wise, do you have any thoughts
I,
on that?
yeah, I mean, I think it's like learning how to juggle all this uncertainty. So like in your episode when you talked about here's what I've learned of managing my business for 10 years, I loved one of the things you said was like personal development and learning. So I think the people right now that are still like, curious, open minded, trying to have some positivity where they can, I think that goes a long way. I think taking care of your physical and mental health outside the business goes a long way. So if you can try to keep up some sort of like routine or like get away from the doom and gloom of the news here and there when you can, or like get away
True
from
that,
emails
man.
and go for a
Yeah.
walk, take your dog for a walk, go for a run, whatever it is, like just to get the endorphins going. And then, understanding like with your team, like stuff's going to happen. Like, our daycare just said like, oh, we're closed for 2 days this week. And so like just being mindful of like everyone has so much going on. If you can give a little grace to your employees that are like trying to pull through this. And then if you're leading a team or if you have contractors and employees, like being the person that's like clear in your vision, that's being optimistic, that um, kind of has that like wartime CEO mentality, I think can go a long way just to kind of be that rock for your team during this time. So those are some of the traits and personality things that I've seen that can work really well during this. And if you are down, like have somebody to talk to. Like you can't be fully transparent with your team or employees a lot of times, unfortunately. So if you have somebody in your networking group or somebody in your Facebook group who's another owner or a friend that you can just like get some of that stuff out to and vent to, I think that
That's
can be really
great.
healthy and go
And
a long way.
that's the importance of like a good mastermind or membership. It's one reason I'm launching my membership is I want to have a place for people who are serious about their business, who don't feel comfortable sharing their thoughts in a big 20,000 free Facebook group, but they have
Yeah,
a close knit of people who are going to actually support them and not dog them for
yeah,
sharing their thoughts or their concerns. So yeah, I feel like that's more important than ever. I also hearing you talk about the personality types that are just the habitual, like the behavior kind of stuff you can do, because we're all going to have ups and lows through this, or ups and downs. I couldn't have made that more confusing. We're going to have these ups and downs with sometimes they're really good, and then sometimes there are these times of uncertainty. But I feel like most web designers and entrepreneurs we're more okay with risk than the average business owner. So I feel like, again, going back to the fact that web design is such a great industry to get into right now, we're a little more prone to that. And it was funny because I kind of felt like that. I didn't know what was going to happen February, March. I was kind of thinking like, I was a little worried about, okay, well, are some clients going to drop off completely? Are they going to shut their doors? I braced myself for, we're probably going to see a dip in numbers because people are going to inevitably delay their payments, or they're not going to get started on a project yet. Or in some cases, some clients might have to close their doors, or they might need to pull back. So I prepared myself for that, but I didn't dwell on that long. I tried to get proactive immediately. And I think for the people who are like a cautious personality type, I think this time has probably been the hardest, because if you're somebody who is cautious and is looking at every cent that comes in the bank account, you're probably freaking out right now. And then if you want, to your point, if you're stuck on Facebook and watching the news all day, you're going to be a stressed out, anxious mess. So it is so important to step away and to actually do something you enjoy and get your endorphins going. But I say all that to say, there's no better time than ever to have some, to feel okay with risk and uncertainty, and to have some confidence in that, and to have some curiosity too. I like that. I think you said curiosity there. I think it's a really good trait right now. Is okay, here's the problem, but as web designers, we all know when a problem happens, like a website gets hacked, or client doesn't go for your proposal, or something happens with your design, then there is a solution to that challenge somewhere. So we just need to find it. So I say all that to say, now is the really good time to get creative and to get curious and to figure out some solutions, because we're actually seeing some incredible innovations, man. Like the stuff that's going on with like some virtual concerts and virtual meetings now. There's all these kinds of like high-end stuff that's pretty revolutionary. And I think, obviously we're not going to do anything crazy as web designers, but there are a lot of like little things we can do that are going to be game changers, I think, in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is the perfect time. And for those, I will say personally, I'm not like the most I don't have the highest risk tolerance, right? But I think there was an exercise that we did with a lot of people when the pandemic first hit, where we looked at their profit and loss statement, or we looked at their budget, and we said, okay, if your revenue dips to X amount, this is the red zone, and you'll cut which expenses. If it's, the orange zone, the yellow, and the green, right? So if you sometimes if you just map out worst case scenario, it's almost like, well, it's not that bad, right? So if I'm a new web designer and you're like, oh, if I only land, X number of projects, or I only have my maintenance plans like to live on, like, then what would I do? Well, could I, subsidize income, or could I do these other things? Sometimes when you look at worst case and then you build from there, you're like, okay, that's not that bad. I got this, So for those cautious types, it might be a good exercise. But I think if you can hang in during this time, innovate, continue to market yourself, like there's a big upswing that people are going to enjoy.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Patrick, because the idea of just almost like looking at the worst case scenario, being okay with it, and then figuring out what the plan would be if you got to that point, I think that's huge. I'm a huge proponent of thinking about that. Don't stay there too long. Like you don't have to look 8 hours a day at like, what happens if I'm in the red zone? You can look at that, plan for it, but then get past it and never think about it again. Move forward. And I always tell students the same thing because a lot of people have been reaching out and they've asked like, do you really think right now is a good time to get into web? I'm afraid of failure, or what if I don't succeed? And the same was true even when I got started. The idea of like, well, I could go for this business, but what if I fail? For me, I always looked at the worst case scenario, which would be I'd probably have to move in with my parents. That'd be like, like I'd have to live with my mom or my dad. Now with a family, it'd be very different. But we would never be on the street. Like worst case scenario, I'm never going to live on the street and will always be taken care of. And what I've learned in my experience, I would translate to a different industry. Again, absolute worst case scenario. But that's it. I thought about that early on and I never looked back. And I think a lot of people get hung up and don't move forward because they're so afraid of failure, but they don't think about what that failure is.
Uh,
Like, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people just, what sucks and what I feel for people who just don't make the leap is because they're missing out on so many good things in
yeah.
their life because they're staying in their comfort zone. They're staying where they know or what they do, and they're never going to experience the true joy of freedom of doing their own thing and really doing something that they want to do if they're paralyzed by failure. But again, if you look at what the quote unquote failure is, as long as you're all right with that, then go for it and
Yeah.
never look back.
Yeah.
Now we have had some down times. Like there's been a couple of times where we've missed our mortgage payment years back, but that was it. Like that was literally the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my entrepreneurial career is I had to pay the mortgage about 15 days late.
Yeah.
That's literally the worst thing that's ever happened. So if you're okay with that, I was okay with that. Didn't affect my credit score. I'm all right. And that's it. So I love that you brought that up because I think it's a huge point, particularly right now.
Yeah. Um, they should go for it. But yeah, if you're really stressed about it, look at worst case, and then you could even do a pros and cons list. If you stay in your current job or stay in your current situation, how would that continue? So yeah.
I like
And
that.
one of my old sayings I used to tell myself when I was doing sales is action cures fear. Like if you're really fearful about something, like talking to a girl or like reaching out to that client or like going for it, like so many times when you take action, like the fear just like vanishes or it's not that big. So if I get in my head too much, like I'll just tell myself that again. I'll be like, action cures fear. Like go for it.
That's great. And I feel like additionally, action also cures like overwhelm. If you're like, if you delay a project or delay something that you know is on your to-do list, like I know there's been times in the past where I'm like, man, I got to do this thing for this client and I just don't feel like doing it. Or, I got to answer this email and I feel like it's going to be maybe a client's unhappy about something. If you sit on it for a long time and think about it too much, it's going to be terrible. Just tackle it immediately. Sometimes you do need to sleep on it, but then get to it. And often a big website thing that was delaying, I would finally do it. And I'm like, that took like 22 minutes. Why was I freaking out about this? And I got it, like there's still things that I do. I've got a stack of papers on my desk I need to get to because there's some tax stuff I got to go over and some medical insurance documents that I cover. And I'll be honest, I'm telling myself this because I've like delayed. This has been sitting on my desk for like a week and I just haven't felt like doing it. But you just inspired me to just get this stuff freaking done right now because I know it's going to take like 10 minutes and be like, why didn't I do that last week?
Yeah.
So that's great. Action. What was the quote? Action cures fear.
Action cures fear. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So
Well, this has been great, Patrick. I feel like we've covered, from a practical sense, a lot of industries just based off your experience here. It's been interesting to hear from you with the different types of clientele you have, what's working, what's not, what to be prepared for. I think most of it's common sense, but industries that are person to person or travel related are going to be very affected. At the same time, if we have those type of clients now more than ever, we need to help them and be empathetic with them and get creative. Sure. So we talked about some of the logistical and practical things, but I also like some of the mental stuff we talked about with being proactive versus reactive. Really taking action and just, looking at worst case scenarios and what failure would look like. And then having the plan for if you get to the orange zone, the red zone, what are you going to do? But more importantly and more critical than all that is to just be curious through this whole time and then really be proactive and work at, just helping people and sharing what, we talked about different marketing tactics right now. So this has been great, man. It's been a good chat with you as somebody who isn't exactly in web design, but you do work with a lot of different industries. So I really appreciate you being transparent with what you've seen through this time. Do you have any maybe like a final thought for my audience moving forward here as we're still kind of right in the middle of this pandemic? We'll see what happens after election and going into the new year. But yeah, what do you have like a final thought for anybody?
I don't know. I think the final thought I would say is like you're on the right wave. Like one of my oldest customers, he was telling me like in the software business in the 80s, like some of the top producers would try to find the right software company, and it's like once you find the right wave, you would paddle as hard as you can and like ride that wave. Like if you're in web design or you're in digital marketing, like it's a big freaking wave that you're riding and like you're in the right one. So like paddle really hard and like catch it and like keep your balance, but it could be worse. You could be like in some of these industries that are really hurting right now. So like hang in there. It gets better, and this is going to be a big wave for a while, and a lot of people are going to enjoy the upside of that and be able to help a lot of businesses out there. So ride the wave, man.
Well said, Patrick. I would have assumed you were in California, not Denver, talking about your surfing ways. So that's great. Awesome, man. Well, Patrick, thanks again, man. When you're in town next, hit me up because I'll take you down to the short north or something, which looks completely different since the last time you were here. So looking forward to connecting with you again, man.
Great catching up. See you, Josh.
Cheers, man.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.